Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where the desert wind stings your face, the stars hang low like silver coins you can't quite reach, and the hum of ancient marketplaces lingers in your ears. You're surrounded by scrolls, sandals, and stories, yet in this strange realm you notice something unsettling. The very people handpicked by God often have pockets as empty as a Pharisee's compassion after midnight. It's a paradox you probably won't survive without a hot drink in hand. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious where and when you're tuning in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Number 1. God's people and the money paradox. You trudge alongside patriarchs and prophets, noticing that divine selection doesn't come with a treasury key. Abraham, rich in livestock, still wanders without a homeland. Moses holds the law but can't buy a vineyard. Historians still argue whether this tension was intentional, a divine pattern to strip away distractions, or simply the economic reality of nomadic covenant-bound communities. A quirky tidbit, in some early rabbinic tales manna was said to taste like whatever you craved, except money. That absence might be the point. Your worth, in this unfolding narrative, isn't tallied in silver, but in trust, endurance, and a stubborn kind of hope that refuses to sell out for comfort. Number 2. Wilderness Wallet Syndrome. You shuffle through the dust of the Sinai, and your coin purse feels strangely light, not because you've spent it, but because there's nothing to spend. The Exodus generation learns quickly that in the wilderness, currency is irrelevant. Your daily sustenance literally falls from the sky, and it spoils if you try to hoard it. Historians still argue whether this was a calculated divine economy lesson or just survival necessity in a barren landscape. Either way, your wallet's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Mainstream history points out that nomadic groups often abandon complex currency systems, relying instead on bartering and resource sharing. But here's a quirky twist. Some Jewish folklore claims the manna never appeared in the tents of the greedy. It landed farther away, forcing them to walk extra. That's one way to keep you humble. As you walk, the absence of trade routes means no foreign luxuries, no imported spices, no shiny trinkets to distract you. Your sandals don't wear out, but your dreams of financial security do. This is wilderness wallet syndrome. Your value is measured not in coins, but in obedience and patience. And oddly, the less you carry, the more you notice the one guiding you by cloud and fire. Number 3. Prophets with empty purses. Oak-style painting, medieval times, seated upon a cool stone, the traveler rests his hands on its weathered surface, recalling medieval monks bent over candlelit manuscripts, the flicker of imagined flame reflected in his eyes, the quiet around him deep as scripture, shadows curling at the edge of the path, dramatic lighting, ethereal atmosphere, Renaissance-inspired oil painting style, chiaroscuro, ultra-realistic textures, cinematic composition, 3D medieval perspective, 16:9 aspect, ultra-high resolution 4K, RR16. You find yourself standing in a dusty village square, listening to a prophet with wild hair and a voice like rolling thunder. His robe is patched, his sandals worn thin, and if he owns a coin, it's probably hiding in the same place his next meal is a mystery. Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, they all seem to carry more visions than valuables. Historians still argue whether these messengers chose poverty as a symbol or simply endured it because truth-telling isn't exactly a lucrative career path. The mainstream historical fact: in ancient Near Eastern cultures, prophets often lived outside the patronage of kings to maintain independence. Without royal sponsorship, they relied on offerings, hospitality, or, occasionally, scavenging. A quirky tidbit: there's a tradition claiming Elijah's ravens once brought him bread baked in a palace kitchen, making him one of the first mystery delivery recipients in recorded history. You watch the crowd, some mock, some listen, some slip coins into his hand. The prophet doesn't cling to them. His real currency is influence, not income. And you realize that for the chosen ones who speak God's words, financial struggle isn't a flaw. It's almost a badge, a visible reminder that their loyalty lies elsewhere, in a kingdom no tax collector can touch. Number 4. King's riches and ruin. You step into the echoing halls of a palace, marble cool beneath your feet, gold gleaming in torchlight. At first glance, it looks like the chosen have finally made it. King David's treasury is full, Solomon's court overflows with exotic goods. Yet you can almost hear the coins slipping away with every trade deal gone wrong, every tribute demanded by a rising empire. Historians still argue whether Israel's wealth under Solomon was sustainable or a gilded bubble waiting to pop. Mainstream history records that ancient monarchies often faced cycles of rapid enrichment followed by crippling debt, especially when military campaigns or lavish building projects drained resources. A quirky tidbit: some ancient inventories list entire collections of imported peacocks and monkeys, symbols of status but utterly useless in a famine. As you wander through storerooms, you notice that the same kings who receive God's favor often face moments when their coffers empty, sometimes because of greed, sometimes as a warning. Wealth is a fleeting crown, one political misstep, one bad harvest, and it's gone. You start to see the pattern. Even at the top, the chosen aren't exempt from financial struggle. If anything, their rise only makes the fall sharper, the lesson louder. Number 5. Exile economics. You stand at the gates of a conquered city, the air thick with smoke and the bitter scent of loss. The chosen nation, once bustling with trade, now lines up under the watchful eyes of foreign guards. Babylonian banners flap above the marketplace where your people once set the prices. Historians still argue whether the exile was purely divine judgment or also an inevitable geopolitical consequence of sitting between warring empires. The mainstream historical fact is clear: exile almost always means economic collapse. Farms are abandoned, trade routes rerouted, skilled workers deported, and in this case Jerusalem's elites were marched to Babylon, leaving behind a stripped homeland. A quirky tidbit: some Babylonian tablets show records of Jewish exiles renting date orchards, meaning even in captivity you might be haggling over figs. You feel the ache of displacement in your bones. Without land ownership, your ability to generate wealth shrinks to scraps. Every shekel you earn feels borrowed. Yet somehow songs and psalms still rise in the evenings, echoing against foreign walls. The struggle here isn't just financial, it's identity theft, the slow erosion of what you own and who you are, until trust in God becomes the last asset left untaxed. Number 6. Jesus and the Bankless Band. You walk along a dusty Galilean road, just behind a man whose eyes seem to see straight through your soul. Jesus carries no coin pouch, no packed provisions, only the quiet certainty of his mission. The disciples trail behind, some with calloused fishermen's hands, others who've abandoned tax ledgers, all now living on whatever bread and olives generosity provides. Historians still argue whether this radical minimalism was deliberate symbolism or simply the only way to move freely across Roman-controlled Judea. The mainstream fact: itinerant teachers in the 1st century often depended entirely on hospitality networks, staying in homes of sympathetic locals rather than inns. A quirky tidbit: there's an early Christian tradition claiming Judas kept the communal money bag, a job that probably made him the group's most stressed member. You notice how financial struggle doesn't dampen the movement, it sharpens it. Without property to guard or accounts to manage, every ounce of focus is on the message. The kingdom they talk about sounds absurdly rich: streets of gold, endless feasts, but the path to it is paved with borrowed donkeys and shared loaves. Following him means accepting that sometimes the chosen life is the bankless life. Number 7. Early church and communal cash flow. You're seated in a cramped upper room, the smell of oil lamps and baked bread thick in the air. Around you, believers pass loaves, coins and clothing with an almost reckless generosity. Nobody claims private ownership. Everything is ours. Historians still argue whether this communal economy was a permanent model or simply a survival strategy in the face of persecution and social exclusion. The mainstream historical fact: early Christian communities in Jerusalem often faced boycotts from local markets and trades, forcing them to pool resources to survive. A quirky tidbit: archaeologists have found ancient fish sauce jars reused as communal money banks, meaning your tithe might rattle around smelling faintly of mackerel. At first it feels freeing, no one lacks and no one hoards, but you notice the strain beneath the joy. Resource distribution is tricky. Some give more than they can afford, others quietly need more than they admit. When famine hits or persecution scatters the group, the shared purse empties faster than it fills. Still, the willingness to bear each other's burdens stands out. In this fragile system, you see that for the chosen, financial struggle often becomes the crucible where trust, sacrifice, and stubborn hope are forged together. Number 8. Faith tests in the marketplace. You step into a bustling ancient marketplace, the air alive with shouts, clinking scales, and the smell of spiced wine. Somewhere between the linen stall and the goat pen, you overhear a merchant laugh. "If your God is so great, why are his people so poor?" The jab stings, but you've heard it before. Historians still argue whether economic trials were random misfortunes or intentionally allowed as spiritual examinations. The mainstream historical fact: in many biblical periods, faithfulness often put you at odds with dominant economic systems. Refusing to sell on the Sabbath, rejecting idol-related trades, or declining dishonest weights could cost you dearly. A quirky tidbit: there's a medieval rabbinic tale of a merchant who refused to water down his wine for profit and ended up with a barrel that miraculously refilled overnight. Proof that sometimes the test comes with an unexpected bonus round. You haggle for dates, but your mind stays on the idea. Maybe these financial struggles aren't accidents. Maybe the scarcity is a forge, burning away greed, sharpening integrity, and proving whether you'll still sing psalms when the balance sheet tilts red. In this market of shifting fortunes, your real investment might be in faith that doesn't depreciate. Number 9. Heavenly wealth versus earthly debt. You sit on a hillside at sunset, the sky melting into gold while your stomach grumbles. Around you, others speak quietly about treasures in heaven, riches that no moth can chew, no thief can lift. The irony isn't lost on you. Here you are, counting clouds instead of coins. Historians still argue whether this emphasis on heavenly wealth was a radical rejection of materialism or a coping mechanism for communities locked out of economic power. The mainstream fact: many early Jewish and Christian teachings reframed poverty as an honorable state when it came from righteous living, contrasting sharply with Roman culture that glorified opulence. A quirky tidbit: in some monastic rules centuries later, a novice had to ceremonially hand over all their worldly goods, sometimes including a pet chicken, which was then shared with the community, though rumor says certain monks kept them secretly. As the evening cools, you feel the pull between the tangible and the eternal. Yes, your earthly debts nag. Yes, the uncertainty gnaws, but in the chosen narrative, you're told the real bank vault is elsewhere, and the interest rate is divine. Trouble is, you can't spend that currency on bread tonight. That tension is the heartbeat of your journey. Number 10. End times economy for the elect. You find yourself in a dreamscape of swirling stars and shadowy markets, where strange symbols glimmer on scales no mortal banker could read. The prophets spoke of days when buying and selling would hinge on marks and allegiances, when the faithful would stand outside the gates of commerce entirely. Historians still argue whether these end-times visions were coded political commentary on oppressive regimes or true glimpses into a cosmic economic reset. The mainstream fact: apocalyptic literature in the ancient world often used trade and currency as metaphors for moral compromise, warning readers that survival might mean refusing the only systems in place. A quirky tidbit: some medieval illustrators depicted the mark of the beast as a literal shopping receipt, complete with crooked handwriting, a satirical jab at tax collectors. Here, in this twilight market, you feel the pressure. The chosen are always caught in the same tension. To remain faithful may mean to remain broke, at least by earthly measures. Yet even as stalls close and lamps flicker out, you sense that this story's economy is upside down, where the poorest on earth might be the richest when the final accounts are settled, and no debt collector follows you past the pearly gates. Now the pace slows, your steps grow softer, the marketplace fading into a gentle hum like wind through tall grass. You picture the chosen ones, not as beggars in rags, but as travelers with light packs and steady eyes, carrying something the world's vaults can't hold. The scent of olive groves drifts in, the air warm and forgiving. You realize that these struggles, stretched across centuries, are threads in a larger weave, one where silver tarnishes but trust keeps its shine. You settle into the thought that maybe lack isn't a punishment, but a pruning, trimming away what keeps your heart too heavy for heaven. Somewhere, coins still clink in far-off stalls, but here, under this slow-spinning sky, you feel no need to count them. So let your breathing ease, let the weight of debts and ledgers slide away for now. In the quiet, you hear a promise not spoken in numbers, that your value has never been up for sale, and as your eyelids grow heavy, you carry that with you, an account that never runs dry, waiting beyond the last closing bell.